People say, oh, the other person, the other spouse has to do 50-50. I said, that's wrong. That there is no such thing as 50-50. One person needs to do 100%, the other person needs to 100%.
How to have these win-win conversations. And that's what's so beautiful now with the work that I do with couples, mainly with entrepreneurial couples. And I do this dialogue method. It's a speaker-listener dynamic.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Knowledge Seeker Podcast. I'm your host, Farhan Mirza. So my today's guest, Judy Herman, she is a psychotherapist, a relationship expert, author of 2 books, Beyond Messy Relationship and Relationship with Purpose. Also, she's a very profound speaker. So imagine that Judy is laying on a couch, by the way, not her couch, her therapist's couch, and she heard these words, Judy, that's not a compliment. That changes her whole entire life. Let's dive into and find out what that means to her. Judy, welcome.
Well, I'm so glad to be here.
Let's wake up some people.
Yes.
So take us back to that couch. What basically happened and what those words is really put impact on you?
Yes. So yeah, I'm trying to figure my life out too. And I am one to do a lot. And a lot of women that are high achievers, a lot of those that would be in the healer, leadership, seeker category, we do a lot for others. And that was going on in my life to the nth degree. I was trying to figure out my life, going through some major trauma, trying to figure out that if my loved one was, what was going on, why he couldn't really listen to me, and is this his illness because he had bipolar disorder, or is it that I just need to be more kind, and just trying to. And she had been with me through my first marriage of 30 years, and homeschooling 4 kids. I tell people that's what my previous profession was, raising these 4 humans in this very troubled marriage. And then this was a second marriage for me. I specialized in relationships. I tried to figure out relationships all my life. So I was really not really willing to admit that all of my identity was wrapped up in the initials behind my name and trying to save a marriage. But my therapist asked me, she said, Judy, you, something to the effect, I've got to go back and see her exact words because this was a response because I thought I was doing the right thing or kind of proud of myself. She said, I've been with you in that first marriage of 30 years, and I know you have a tremendous amount of stick-to-itiveness and resilience. And I was thinking, oh, she noticed. And then she looked at me and she said, and that's not a compliment.
Yeah. So let's go back to your personal story and your life. Like, how did you meet your husband? I know in your book, actually, you mentioned that you were loyal to your marriage for 30 years. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How long it took you to realize, 30 years, but what was the point that you said, hey, this is not right? I need to change something. What was that turning point for you?
Oh my goodness. There were a lot of awakenings.
Yes.
That I experienced. Here's what I think it was. Pinpointing a certain awakening, but there were several awakenings, but something that I believe, and many of us struggle with this as healers, especially women and those of us that have born children and were naturally nurturers. But for some reason, I had to align with the truth that you cannot do for another human what only they can do for themselves.
Oh, yeah.
And it was being hit with that reality. And raising kids, these little ones that are born and you care for them and do everything for them. You pick your friends, their friends for them. But honoring their human journey. So for me, raising these 4 children, homeschooling, and feeling extremely responsible for these human beings and how I was living my life, and it just became so toxic in that first marriage. I just could not. What I was modeling for them as their mother was doing them more harm than good, and I believe the marriage got to that point. It was just it was way past its due date, or I should say. It was way past.
So you say you have 4 kids. Those are from your first marriage, or?
Yes,
okay.
From my first marriage. Mm-hmm.
And also you mentioned in your book about your husband, I think it was the first husband that has a bipolar disorder.
That was husband number 2.
And that's husband number 2, okay. So the 30-year marriage was with your husband number first or number 2?
Number 1.
Number 1.
So yes, I got married at the age of 22.
Okay.
And had 4 babies because that's what you did. And I came from a very conservative faith background. Women are to be submissive and men are to be the leaders and breadwinners. And so I came from that mentality.
Okay.
And that's just what you do. You go to college, then you get married. You go and get your MRS degree, so to speak.
So you were very loyal to your first husband for almost 30 years, even though there was a lot of trouble or red flags you saw, you basically ignored. Mm-hmm. So loyalty, that's like a badge of honor. When was, for you, it was the point that the badge of honor you are wearing has a dark side?
Oh my goodness. That's actually one of the topics of my speaking.
Okay.
I address the topic of toxic loyalty. So from toxic loyalty to truthful living. It works for a while and till it doesn't work, basically. And the dynamics there in that first marriage, which is very common, I've learned as I've sat behind the 4 walls of a counseling office and hearing many stories. And I'm not the only one. But the story goes, a lot of times, as long as a woman is in a subservient position or a subservient role, things seem to be okay. When she has awakenings, when she has this awareness, perhaps she's, starts making more money than her husband or whatever the case is, or grows. And that's where then there's an imbalance in those types of marriages.
Yeah.
Healthier, more resilient marriages mean that both husband and wife grow. They grow and grow up, basically. We cannot be living our childhoods in adult bodies with childish thinking which many of us have. You can't be thinking like a 22-year-old when you're 45 or 55. You've got to grow and grow up, which then means that the marriage or the relationship will evolve. And it takes both to do that. But when it's a threat to one and it's interrupted and there's these power control dynamics, that's where it's a huge issue. And we have some concepts such as covert emotional abuse. Maybe it's not outward, but it's this power over control mentality that happens.
And I think that's the biggest issues most people have because of the control, because the control freaks we have. I usually say about the relationship or in marriage, as actually people say, oh, the other person, the other spouse has to do 50-50. I said, that's wrong. That there is no such thing of 50-50. You have to be 100%.
You do.
One person needs to do 100%, the other person needs to 100%.
That's right.
That's how it works. And if one person is doing 100%, other person is 50%, of course it's not going to work.
Right. It really isn't. And so many families that are like into ball, like their kids are playing on ball fields, and it becomes maybe a very child-centered marriage. But in many cases, and maybe one of them is a coach or something, but you end up having like an opposing team within your own family system. Yeah. And that's where it's a huge problem, because then everyone is a loser. If somebody has to say, I'm the winner, win or loser type of dynamics, they don't work. Because you don't want to go to bed with a loser, number one. You don't want to be a loser for sure. But how to have these win-win conversations. And that's what's so beautiful now with the work that I do with couples, mainly with entrepreneurial couples. And I do this dialogue method. It's a speaker-listener dynamic where you're making a choice. First of all, you don't try to both be the speaker at the same time, but it's making that space between two people emotionally safe. And one person being willing as a listener to put their stuff basically on the back burner so that you can be fully present. And then, it being a reciprocal thing to be able to then mirror back the other one. But one of the biggest things that we can give to our partner, or another human for that matter, is the gift of your presence, the gift of being heard and listened to, and the other person being able to feel felt.
Not only listen, like when you are listening to someone, of course, we have to put our phones on the side too.
Yeah, that's true. That's so true.
Yeah.
Because you can tell, even if you've got the phone with you.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the internal, whatever's going on internally, I mean, it can be felt.
Yep.
It's not just outward.
Mm-hmm. So for the people who are still single or they are in a relationship, what kind of a tool you can give it to them that with this listening to you right now might be helpful for them?
I'd say the biggest tool is what every human being has capacity to do, and that is to be curious.
Curious, okay.
Curious. Mm-hmm. Have an attitude of curiosity. So are you talking about people who are just dating?
Yeah,
starting
just
to date?
starting to date and, building a relationship and might be in the future they're thinking they're going to get married. So I think last time we talked I usually say, hey, listen, the thing is that first of all, you need to spend 4 seasons with them before you commit to anything. Mm-hmm. And also have you see yourself eating 10,000 meals with them in the future.
That's good. That's good.
The people say, what, 10,000 meals?
Yeah.
I say, yeah, that's actually equal to 3 years, I think.
Yeah. That's a good one. That's a good one. I do. Yeah, that's great.
So please, yeah.
Well, I was going to say, be able to recognize the red flags, even on a first meeting with someone. And one of those red flags would be if this person is talking about maybe a past relationship that they've had, and that person, they have a whole lot of negative to say about them, and they haven't shared what they've learned, that's a red flag. Another red flag is if they talk about themselves the whole time and don't ask you about anything. That's a red flag.
Yeah, yeah. And also when you are, telling all this, asking questions to one person, keep asking questions, and then you said, do you have a question for me? And the person said, no, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think for me, that's a red flag too.
Don't have a second date with that person.
Yeah. So let's talk about your book. You mentioned a couple of things that I noticed, actually. You use the phrase dance, word of dance, dance of shame, dance of resilience, dance of not good enough.
That's right.
Please explain this to our audience.
The analogy of dance is how you show up in relationship with another. So these are automatic patterns that begin in childhood while our brains are being developed. They begin with early relationships, how we as humans have moved toward pleasure and away from pain. And they are our defense mechanisms. And they're so embedded in our psyches. So that's why when you start dating someone or you start doing life with someone or you choose someone to marry, who you're choosing is your subconscious agenda is to complete the unfinished business of childhood. So when I talk about dances, number one, I love to dance. Number two, it's a great analogy because you have to be in step with this.
No, I love that. When I read that, I said, wow, that's a great analogy. So that's why I wanted to, explore that with you.
Yes. Mm-hmm. It's the familiar. So the brain is looking for what's familiar. And so the dance is what you're used to doing in your family of origin or whoever it was that raised you or your significant siblings that you grew up with. So how you related with them And then you inadvertently take those into your adult relationships. And those are the dances. And you match with the person who synchronizes with that dance.
Ah.
Yes. So you're both, going back to the first marriage, or when a marriage does dissolve or the dynamics change, one person can be dancing their dance and not be aware of those childhood dances, and they keep dancing dysfunctionally. But they synchronize really good early on. But then when the other one starts dancing differently with whatever heightened awareness, maybe taking ownership of some leadership that perhaps he or she's not had before, discovering herself, that's going to change the synchronization of that dance. Mm-hmm.
So when in the relationship, take your analogy about dancing, when one person figured that out, okay, well, this dancing thing is not working anymore. Uh-huh. There's some kind of signs or like red flags they have to see, okay, this relationship is not gonna go anywhere. This relationship has to maybe end, or that dancing needs to be end. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Well, so if it ends too soon and it ends without going to a therapist first, or going to some kind of awakening retreat, or if there's not been the self-examination, likely you could end that relationship and then be drawn like a magnet to the same kind of relationship that's going to end up that way. So if you don't do your work internally, if you don't, like, for example, if a woman is used to being the submissive wife, and she doesn't speak up for herself, and so she's starting to speak up for herself, she's going to be, and she does her own growth, that's going to, uneven that other relationship. But if she doesn't do her work, and there's conflict anyway, let's say both of them are in that state of unawareness, kind of like they're not aware. They're just like all these automatic thoughts that are part of our humanity that are so automatic in the ways that we relate. It's gonna become conflicting. But if we don't discover what that conflict is all about, we're gonna repeat it. Kind of like Bill Murray's character in the movie Groundhog Day.
Groundhog, sorry. Yeah.
Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the thing is that a lot of women, not a woman actually, some men are too, there is a concept about people pleasing. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And how damaging this people pleasing mindset in a relationship is.
Yeah. If you're showing up saying, I'm sorry all the time, that's something that we need to explore that. What's that all about? Yeah.
Yeah, please. No, I'm just going to say that this is probably something from the childhood that they see.
Mm-hmm. A lot of times it is.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So let's talk about, you talk about, if you don't seek professional help like yourself, mm-hmm. then of course it's kind of, damaging for your relationship as well. Like we talk about, what I usually say, hey, the therapy is basically when you're in the jar, mm-hmm. you cannot read the label outside. Mm-hmm. The experts like you take you from the jar and then show you how the label of your life is. So when is the point that somebody really needs to seek help like yourself, meaning experts like yourself?
Gotcha. First of all, that analogy of the being in the jar, I think people stay in that jar. I don't think a therapist or anybody else can take them out of the jar, but a therapist can help them. So going back to the question was what are the signs in which, yes. Hey, I need some help? Okay, if you've exhausted your friend group, if you have just, you're bringing everybody else down by talking about your problems a lot, then it's probably time to see a therapist. And it's really the best time to see a therapist is when you are not in the midst of a crisis. And in my book, I talk about this as well, that there's basically 3 levels. There's the, the construction stage, I think is how I described it. There's a crisis stage, there's a construction stage, there's another stage. I can't remember what I wrote. Anyway, but if you are in a crisis mode, you're not really in therapy yet. Basically, what you're doing is trying to make sense of your world. If you're, you found out your spouse cheated on you for the last 10 years and wants a divorce, it's like you're going to need some grounding. You're going to need to make sense of where you are right now. So the best time to come to therapy is when you start feeling that this is a recurring thing. Actually, there's some statistics too, and I need to share this. So the Gottman Institute. I'm trained in the Gottman method. For your listeners, some may know about this, but it is people who write books on marriage and relationships will basically quote the Gottman research out of Seattle, and they've done longitudinal studies. So one of these studies is that by the time a couple begins to realize there's a problem in the relationship, most people wait 6 years before they come to see a therapist. So we're having to unravel a whole lot. But all that to say, crisis mode is not really therapy. And if you can come in before the crisis, that's the best thing. But we need to get the crisis stabilized before real therapy can take place.
And how they can stabilize the crisis. I mean, some people, they just stay in a toxic relationship because of familiarity, because they're familiar with this kind of a thing, even though they know this is basically very damaging. So talk about this. The thing is that I'm so familiar with the same thing, even though it's a toxic relationship, I need to stay here. I need to stay in this relationship. How people can get some kind of a strength or mindset that, this is not only damaging your mind, but also damaging your health too.
It's going to shorten your life.
Yeah.
It shortens it because stress does that.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't get help until they have these physical symptoms going on. Backaches, migraine headaches, fibromyalgia, all of those things. Everything is like connected in the body. And what we experience in the body emotionally and how our thoughts are transcribed into they are embedded in the very cellular level of our bodies.
Yeah.
So we can have some trauma from the past that we may not mentally remember what that was, but the body remembers. And so whatever's going on in their relationship could be a trigger with all of that past trauma as well.
Childhood trauma. So in your practice, when couples comes to you or single woman comes to you, what are the biggest challenge you see in those conversations that, especially with a single woman, that, this is actually challenge for you basically because they are not articulate their problems very clearly.
Well, I have a way of being able to talk with somebody and they come back and say, you know what, I've never told anybody that before. So so when they do see me as a therapist, as a psychotherapist versus seeing me as a coach or seeing me as a retreat facilitator, when I see my clients, they take a really thorough assessment even before I see them face to face. So I will gather a lot of information from them. And there's the ACE test, which is a series of questions. It does ask, about some early childhood adverse effects or experiences that they may have had. And that gives me a lot of information, but they fill out a lot. And so we have a process with which to go through. But usually after that first 90-minute session, they come away with insights right away and being really, really clear about what their next steps are.
So do you see more in couples that they're basically blaming each other in the session?
Here's another thing I do. Yes, that has happened. And these days, and I've worked specifically with entrepreneurial couples, but as far as this stage of my development as a therapist, I don't take anybody that just comes and asks about therapy. We want to make sure it's a good fit. But one of those things is I let them know, number one, it's the relationship that's the client, okay? And I got to make sure that they're going to be like easy to work with. and so anyway, that's where I'm at in my career. But yes, that's a very common thing. But here's the thing. If you drag your spouse to therapy, usually one has to be dragged, right? And the other one says, oh, that's not that big a deal. And the other says, yes, this is, we're going to do this or else. If you're trying to change the other person, basically, and you're coming in for that person, or for that reason, it's not couples therapy. It's not couples. They need to go to an individual, right? Yeah.
And I think that's also a thing that, when people are dating and all that, they're all, you're good and this and that. And when they get together, married, then the person who is like everything seems very good on other person say, well, you need to change because I don't like the way. We try to change each other.
Yes.
And I think that's one of the biggest problem in a relationship, that we try to change each other, even though we dated 3 years and we didn't want to change anything. But now we are married, we want to change everything.
That's because they slack off, right?
Yeah.
And here's the thing. Think about how difficult it is to change yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, like every January, most people will do, New Year's resolutions. And then that's when, things level off, I don't know, within days after that, right? So how in the world do we get it in our minds that we can change another human being? And especially if they don't want to, right? So again, this is what I would call an illusion, or delusion. We could call it a delusion. It's not possible to change another. And, you can't, here's another thing. It's so important because we cannot, if we just align with reality rather than staying in the fantasy and align with reality that you alone are responsible for your reactions or your responses to life. Life is going to come at you somehow, right? It is. It does to everybody. Like in order to live our lives, we're gonna experience it. How are we gonna respond? And we cannot do that for another human. We can't breathe the breath of another human. We cannot think the thoughts of another human. We cannot believe the beliefs of another human, let alone try to change their behavior. It just is not possible.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The way you said it actually reminds me, Viktor Frankl. I don't know if you heard Viktor Frankl and the book called Man's Search for Meaning.
Yes, absolutely.
He has a very famous line. He said about the response and all that. He said, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response.
Yes.
And in our response lies our freedom and growth.
Absolutely.
And I love that. When I, read that, I said, wow, yeah. I mean, like, Eleanor Roosevelt once said, nobody can make you upset without your consent.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Why you want to give the power to somebody else to make you upset?
That's right.
So let's talk about intimacy in relationship. Mm-hmm. How important that is.
Intimacy is extremely important. It's more than sexual intimacy. Or are you making reference to just sexual intimacy?
Yeah, I mean, both like touching, sexual intimacy and, kind of thing.
Yes. When I work with couples, it's really beautiful. Like I do put them in a position of like face to face. So if they're face to face, eye to eye, skin to skin, that alone is wonderful therapy. But here's the thing about sex or physical touch or anything is that it's important to honor the other person, to honor yourself and to honor the other, and to have open communication. We're really not taught. We're not taught to talk about sex. I mean, to a certain extent, we've all been kind of very traumatized or whatever, because of our culture and the shame and all of that.
Kind of taboo important. Subject. Kind
right,
of thing, yeah.
Right. We need to open up conversation, and it can be uncomfortable at first, but it's important. It's important to talk rather than just acting out.
The reason I bring this up because I recently was reading an article that most American couples now having less sex now. And the reason they were saying that because of one of that, everybody seems like busy on the phone. And also the reason, I mean, they were not clear on what the reason basically are, but the one reason what they were showing that it's like because of the social media. The also second thing was talking about pretending to be busy. And so that's why they're having a less sex and less intimacy. There was I forgot the name of the person, the speaker. He was saying that, he said, men does not want sex, they need sex. And woman does not want intimacy, they need intimacy. That's how we wired basically.
Yes.
And of course, like you were saying, that the sex becomes so taboo now in our culture now that we can't even talk, even though. So I think this is one of the part of the connection too. When men have, sex or something like that, they feel connected.
Right. Absolutely. It's definitely a physiological connection. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. And I think have you like experience in your practice that people come to you and talk about this subject?
Well, there's others in the field that specialize in sex therapy.
Yeah.
And that's not one of my specializations. Although, if you learn how to be intimate in your communication and the non-sexual touches and the really hearing and being curious about your spouse and showing up for your spouse, the sex will just automatically happen. I'm just saying it. And it's not a problem when it's not a big part of the relationship. In other words, it's not, I don't know if I can explain that one. Maybe you've got some questions about that. And by the way, people who work together, and I work a lot with entrepreneurial couples, people who have businesses together usually have less sex than other couples.
I think that what I'm actually trying to say is some women, they hold back sex from their men because when they get upset or mad or something. And I think that's also very damaging for a man because that's how we connect to a person, a woman that we love. That, okay, she's holding this back because, she's mad at me or she's basically, resentment or some kind of a resentment.
Right.
And that's what I'm trying to, asking you that do you see, I know you're not even a sex therapist, but you're a therapist.
Right.
People talk about that kind of a thing.
Yes.
So what would you recommend in these kind of a situation?
Well, I do recommend talking through because what we have is, I don't know if anyone or any woman, I should say, that is really drawn and turned on by her husband that has a whole lot of resentment and wants to have sex with an angry man. I don't know if anybody wants that.
Yeah.
So how to not overly identify with the anger. I mean, obviously, resentment is going to kill any relationship. Resentment will also, as a human, put you to an early grave. So our emotions are meant to move and to flow and don't overly identify. So that probably is a stuck place. And the resentment likely needs to be treated. Also, in the case of, okay, is she holding back or she perhaps doesn't have the energy to have sex? But again, we have an incident that happens. Maybe she's always, been that submissive wife and didn't have the courage to say no because, maybe she didn't have her own autonomy in the sexual relationship. And I don't know. So we could get into the weeds. I'm sorry.
No.
But we have a story about it. Like you said, the husband might be saying, "Oh, she's withholding it from me." Maybe she doesn't even have the capacity for it. Maybe she's been nursing her babies and just doesn't have the capacity that evening for it. And maybe or maybe we do have some resentment that just needs resolution. And so we need to resolve all of that.
So I think the communication is the key here.
Communication and on a deeper level, right? Not just like communication can be on surfacey levels. It can be, how was your day today? And, who'd you meet with? Or who'd you have for lunch? Those are surfacey levels. But getting into deeper communication, which would be how do you know what you feel? Like asking your spouse something very simple like, hey, honey, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10, I feel like Wonder Woman with you, and 1, I'm so drained, I have nothing to give. On a scale of 1 to 10, how are you right now? Where's your love tank on a scale of 1 to 10? Let her give you a number.
Ah, interesting. I think that's a very good way to. And speaking of resentment, I think I told you the resentment is like a poison we are taking.
Oh my goodness.
And expecting someone else to die.
It really is. And unfortunately, people live in that a long time, or they perhaps have been exposed to that in their childhoods for a long time. It may be so much a part of their norm in their human psyche, or they think it is, and they don't realize that is so holding them back on so many levels.
I think this is, like you said, resentment is basically put you in a grave pretty soon because it's very toxic and also drain. That's why, whoever said that, that it's a poison.
It is.
It is a poison you are drinking and you basically expecting someone else to die because you're thinking that you are having a grudge and all that is affecting other person, even though the other person don't even know that.
Right.
And you basically cling yourself. So I think the communication in any relationship is the key.
It is.
And so the advice for, the people, especially the younger woman, what would you advise them when they are getting into a relationship that they need to see the habit or maybe the skill they can develop so they can be a better spouse?
That's a good question. So for a younger woman, a skill that she can develop to be a better spouse, basically, is what you're asking? Okay, good. Here's what I believe that I think is so important. Again, so many people don't have this basic foundation where they know in their heart of hearts that they are deeply loved and worthy. And what happens with a young woman or whatever age, young man, woman, anybody at any age, you're going to be drawn to a person. Like I said, there's so many subconscious agendas going on. And the brain is looking for what's familiar. And so if she's dating somebody and she doesn't have her core belief about herself that she is worthy, and she may accept some poor treatment that would reflect that she doesn't believe that. Like that relationship is a mirror to her. I believe that all relationships that we encounter are mirrors to our souls. And so what is this person reflecting to me? And especially for those that are working on recovering from a toxic relationship. What did I learn from that? What did that reflect to me about myself? And how can I rise to a level of my own worthiness and do my own growth so that I'm going to be attracting somebody that is going to honor that?
Yeah. No, that's the key point you said that, because a lot of previous relationship, we have toxic relationship or something, we bring that to our current relationship and we just focus on everything. Let's say if somebody cheated on before in their previous relationship, if their spouse is not answering their phone for 2 hours, their mind goes to, they're cheating on me.
That's right. That's right. They do. And here's the thing. It's interesting in the brain, and I shared this earlier, that it's kind of like a puzzle. The brain is kind of like a puzzle. And again, the invitation is to become more aware, more self-aware, aware of automatic thoughts. But think of a wooden puzzle where you've got these little pieces that fit, okay? So if you and your family of origin and even past relationships have had these patterns, then you're going to be looking for other things that are going to fit into that puzzle. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's why we can, inadvertently live Groundhog Day with Bill Murray's character waking up to the same day over and over again. Perhaps maybe a different person, a different stage of life, a different partner, but you've got your own work to do. Yeah.
And I think I don't know how you can change. I mean, of course, with your help as an expert, I think that's because they have to, before they get into another relationship, they need to, like you said, work on them first and find out their weaknesses. Because, the triggers, basically, their trigger points where they, because I think in also these trigger points. So if you are in a relationship and somebody says something to you, let's say your partner or your spouse, and you got triggered very quickly, I think that's basically, you should be not getting mad at your spouse or the person. You should be high-fiving that person because that person basically told you that you are so weak in that development, I think. So let's switch back to your, we were talking about your retreat. You are a retreat expert also. So talk about your retreat. What's the retreat that you work on those
Yes,
things?
I'd love to tell you about the retreat. The retreat, so I have, my life has been so transformed through retreat experiences. And having been a psychotherapist for a long time, I'm licensed in Tennessee and Georgia, and then having the four walls of a counseling office and meeting people. And it's been very wonderful and transformational on many levels, but we've not even tapped into a fraction of the transformation that is possible in a retreat setting. And really, it's been since 2020, since COVID, when many of us as therapists were doing therapy, across the screen and telehealth and all of that. But since that time, I let go.
And put your hands up in the air and say this. Let's say it together. I am worthy of dignity, love, and
of the four walls of a counseling office. And now I offer retreats, private retreats, and couples can come from various different states that I'm not licensed in, but do therapy with me with a private retreat. But now I do offer, in 2026, I have 4 retreats offered as like small group retreats to provide some transformational moments, because you can do talk therapy. And for a lot of people, it's helpful. But for, like I said, all of these thoughts, and we so embody the things that we're not even aware of. And talk therapy just doesn't do it. A retreat experience where you just take yourself out of your daily grind of life. And I took a group to Ecuador last year. It was absolutely amazing. But to be taken away from our, culture and into a different culture altogether, there's something, it's an automatic reset of the nervous system. And there's some awakenings that just happen so beautifully. And I love doing retreats.
So you do retreats like in different countries, or you do in home, meaning like in Chattanooga, Tennessee, or everywhere?
Okay, so at this point, in 2026, I have 4 retreats scheduled. It's a retreat series. So the one that's coming up in January is called the Forward Focus Retreat. And it is for healers, leaders, and seekers who would like to rise above relationship drama and live their better life, and to get really focused starting the year out. So that's going to be held in Flintstone, Georgia, at an Airbnb that I have rented, and it's going to be like just 9 people on this retreat, 10 people in the room. And they're going to have, it's a 3-day retreat, and it's going to be extremely transformational. So I say all that to say, my retreats, I've got the local retreats planned for a year that align with the seasons, because really every 90 days, the brain needs a reset. And then within, I don't have it on the calendar yet, but I will be taking an international retreat as well in 2026.
So let's talk about your international retreat or even trips. So in 2 years ago, you've been in India.
Yes, that was amazing.
So let's talk about your trip to India. How was it, and what did you basically learn from that trip?
Yes, I was so very privileged. And so going through my own losses in my life, and lots of changes. I've been very intentional to experience a bigger life. And I've always wanted to travel, and I have traveled just a little bit before this time. But I went to India and was with a group, and we traveled to a lot of the spiritual places in India. It was very, very fascinating, and was there for 3 weeks with a larger group. Stayed afterwards and met with a group of marriage and family therapists in New Delhi. And that was really such a precious visit. And then on the very tail end of, before going back to the U.S., I stayed with a couple. So I was able to get a real feel for what life in India is like.
So talk about the life compared to the U.S. and the India and the couples you met there. What do you see in them that you basically wish that the couples in U.S. will adopt that? Something like the respect, the intimacy, meaning like not intimacy, like a sex intimacy. I'm talking about like caressing or touching and like very gentle to each other, something like that. That you wish that maybe the couples in America would, because it's a different culture. It's a different culture because, I'm from Pakistan originally. I'm not from India, but we have kind of similar kind of culture. So the intimacy over there is not as open as here in Western countries.
Yes. Okay. So just full disclosure, I didn't really do a couples counseling session with the family that I stayed with. I could have. So I don't even have that inside look. I just met with the therapists that gave me an overall view also of the multi-generations that families live with and their challenges with that. But as far as the intimacy with couples in India versus the intimacy of couples in the U.S., I don't think I'm qualified to.
So what I'm saying is actually, when I grew up, what I see in my own parents, like, in here in Western countries or in America, couples actually in front of their kids, they hug and kiss and all that. This is not a big no-no in our society.
Okay.
So meaning like you're not gonna see a father or mother like hugging or kissing each other in front of their kids. So that, I think that's a huge difference. That's what basically I, grew up in, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And I think that's basically what I think is also affect to a person who grew up in this kind of a relationship or this kind of environment, actually, not relationship. And then when they come to in Western countries and they see all this kind of a thing, and they say, well, I never saw my parents doing that. And it's kind of a little bit uncomfortable for them.
Of course it is uncomfortable for them.
And also, we basically sometimes bring this mindset in our own relationship, meaning because sometimes we are not, touching or kissing or something like that in front of our, maybe siblings or something, because we have this mind kind of a set. Even though I'm married to a, American girl, and of course she grew up here and all that. So sometimes when she usually asks me, "Can I hug you in front of your sister? Can I hug you?" I said, "Yeah, of course you can hug me."
Her to ask,
You can hug me, but you cannot kiss me in front of them. So
that would be a little too much.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I did experience in India, just with something as a traveler, and probably other people know this if they've traveled a lot, but the different lines, in India, the women are very much more modest than they are here in the U.S. And going in separate lines through the security system there in the airport, that's an example of it.
For a woman, a different line.
Right. And that's interesting.
And I think most people, well, I don't say most people, I don't want to generalize. Some people in Western countries think that because woman has a separate line, this is some kind of we are oppressing woman in that culture. Even though that's not true, because that's basically just the culture is. As a respect, they don't want to be mingled into the men. And that's why I guess they have a separate kind of line kind of thing.
Right.
So, I mean, yeah, that's, the different cultures. That's why I think, first of all, you have to be open-minded. And, there's a very famous quote from, I think he's a life coach. His name is missing. He said, your mind is like a parachute. It won't work unless it's open.
Ooh, I had to find out who said that. That's pretty good. Yeah.
I think Deepak Chopra, he said that. And that's what I think what he said that. But when I heard that, I said, wow, that's so true. And the second thing that in order to do that, you need to travel. You need to travel around the world and meet the people and find out the culture and all that. That's how basically your mind gets open.
You know what? That is very true. In fact, that's I have 5 grandchildren, and the oldest is going to graduate high school next year. But one of my visions here or promises is that I'm going to take each one on an international trip of their choice as a high school graduation.
Nice.
So that means I have to be in really good shape because my youngest granddaughter is like 6 years old. So there you have it.
Oh, okay, 6 years old. Okay. So Judy, in your book, you use a word or acronym AIR.
Yes.
Could you please explain our audience what that means?
Yes, and the chapters are aligned with these 3 things that go along with the acronym. First of all, air is something that we all need to breathe, and we need it to sustain our lives. And every time you take a deep breath, and you do that, 3 deep breaths for about 90 seconds, it slows down the nervous system, which helps us to stay grounded in the moment. So it's something that is very practical that we do. But also, it's an acronym. The A stands for awareness, heightened, and I've talked about awareness throughout, being more aware. And then the I is intentionality, and the R is the risk of growth.
Ah, interesting.
Yes.
Very, very good. And also, you were mentioning about the method called CALM.
Yes, and this is something that I've developed within the last year, just with culminating all the things that I've seen what works with transformation. So this is calm after the storm. Also another acronym. The C is getting clarity. Because when you're in a confusing relationship or a toxic loyalty, so to speak, you don't know what you're dealing with, and you're not really aligned with. You're not clear. You get confused. So the C is clarity. And the A is awakening. That's awakening those subconscious agendas that I talked about earlier, those automatic things that are happening, like awakening and being aware, because you cannot change anything that you're not awakened
unless you
or
know,
aware of, right? And then the L in the calm is lift, to lift above the relationship drama. And I have a remarkable story that goes with that. But when other people are keeping that drama and that dance, like we talked about the dances, when they're there, we can lift above that drama, and there's a way to do that. And then the M is master communication.
We talk about this communication, that how important that communication in any relationship.
Absolutely.
Doesn't matter it's a marital relationship or it's a business relationship. I think without communication, I don't think so anything can be clear.
That's exactly right.
Or calm.
Right. It's kind of like everything builds on everything else. Like being clear with your core values, and that's going to, just get you aligned. And then the awakened, because you can't change anything you're not aware of, and awaken to those subconscious agendas, lifting above the drama, and then mastering the communication.
Great.
Can I say something else about
yes,
mastering
please,
communication?
Please.
So on the retreats, and I've talked about the dialogue between 2 people, the speaker-listener technique. Well, on the retreat, it's really amazing because you have a very trusted, curated group of people that come together. We're talking a small group of about 10 people. And we do this technique called communologue. So dialogue is with 2. Communologue is with more than 2, 3 or more people. I've done this many times with families and with groups, but we're doing this on the retreat, which is so pretty. It's profound. So we have what you call a stress ball. I should have brought it today, but someone who's holding the whole world in their hands. It's a globe ball. And we do one issue at a time. And they will speak. You can pass the ball if you don't have anything that's bubbling up in you. But you can say whatever you want. Someone else in the group will mirror them back so that they are heard and understand and validated. It's tremendously powerful. But the person across the room, if something is happening in them, if they're triggered in any way or some kind of idea comes because this person is saying something, they have to wait their turn to get the ball. So it goes all the way around the group. And the beautiful thing about it is we do about 3 rounds of this. The first round stays pretty surfacey. Remember, we were talking about this different levels of communication. But then the second round, kind of like, oh yeah, when you said that, then what that did, that, they learn how to identify with each other. There's this connection. And then the third round usually gets pretty deep. It's really amazing.
Very interesting, actually. Very interesting method. All right.
That's actually, it's like a trademark of the work that I do.
Okay.
Is the dialogue and the group settings, the communologue, and that's where you really tune in, especially in a group setting, well, in a couple setting too, but you tune in to what's going on with you. And then you also have the ability to hold back whatever reactions, take deep breaths when we need to, but then you have this awareness of the energy within the group. And it's just
interesting.
Having that transformation. And remember, we were talking about you can't see the label when you're in the jar and how relationships are mirrors to you. Well, that happens on the retreat where you have these mirrors and they're able to see this label while you're still in the jar. They're able to see some aspects of you that maybe even one therapist couldn't pick up on. And it's just extremely powerful. And that's why I so believe in retreats and doing this kind of work, because it is the transformation happens. It's almost like you can't help it. It's going to happen, the awakenings and the perspective changes, all of this. And it's a calm.
I think the transformation happens, like you said, when there is understanding and awakening, when you learn that, hey, I need to do about something.
Well, here's the difference. When you're one-on-one with a therapist and you're doing the talk therapy and you're saying, okay, I need to do this. And then you go home, life happens in between the next therapy, you and the next therapy session. On a retreat setting for a 3-day retreat, you're actually doing. You are actually practicing the thing that you're just talking about in the therapy.
And that's a couple retreat you're talking about.
Well, I'm talking now about the forward focus retreat. This is the one with a group. And going back to the AIR acronym, for a lot of people, it takes a whole lot of courage to come to a retreat like this in a group. Of course, we're going to meet, ahead of time before the actual 3-day retreat. I'll do the group Zoom call so people can meet each other and that kind of thing. But going back to that AIR acronym, they're aware that, okay, I've been too isolated here, even with my therapist or even with my wife or even with my, what people know about me. The intention is making the plans to do the thing, whether that's, you're writing in the journal, you're doing some meditations, or you're calling up Judy and saying, hey, tell me about that forward focus retreat. That's your intentions. And then the risk of growth is actually signing up and being part of it and experiencing it. Transformation is tremendous.
Interesting. Let's talk about, the people who are listening right now. If they need to burn one toxic loyalty in the relationship, what would be that one toxic loyalty then they need to be burned?
Burned meaning that
like they need to get rid of that. They need to basically say, no, this is basically unacceptable.
Okay, well, of course, if anyone is being assaulted and violated physically, and then call 911 and make sure that you get out of that toxic situation.
Yeah. I think this, first of all, if somebody, for me as a man, if, there's a lot of men who hits women. For me is if you raise a hand to a woman, I think that woman should just end that relationship right there. Because I don't think so there's any comeback with that with this thing. Because as a man, first of all, you're not a man if you're hitting a woman. Because there's a lot of women have physical abuse and they still keeping that relationship. I think for a woman, if listening to that and has a, this kind of a relationship, you need to get out like yesterday. Because the man you are with who hit you, that's not a man. So is there anything else before we wrap this up that you want to share with us, with our audience?
Yeah, I'd like to leave on a good note for sure.
Yes.
And get some help too, with wherever you are. And I know that men can be hit by women as well.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, that does violate. So the closing remarks is what...
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I would like your listeners to really know, as we've talked here about a lot of things, I appreciate the conversation, that you are worthy. You are worthy of dignity and love and respect. And to really feel that, it's going to be important for you to surround yourself with people who also can reflect that to you as well. So that's what I'd like to leave with, folks.
No, definitely. And again, thank you so much for your insight, Judy. But before we go, where people can find you, how they can find your retreat things that you are doing. So your website, or if you have Instagram or your social media handles, please tell us to our audience. All
right. You can go to judycounselor.com is where you're going to find the retreat, the Forward Focus retreat that's coming up in January. We'll have a conversation. I'm actually just making sure that it's a good fit for the group and for participants. But you can find me on LinkedIn, Judy K. Herman. You can find me on Instagram, Judy K. Herman. You can find me on Facebook, Judy K. Herman. So there you have it. And but you'll probably be able to get me really well on Facebook. And I do have a YouTube channel. I'm sorry, LinkedIn is my main social media.
Okay. So before we end this, I actually have a final question for you.
Okay.
So it's loyalty without blank. Fill that blank for me.
Loyalty without blank equals, did you give me the equal? Because I got to have a math equation here.
It's not equal. It's just fill in the blank with, loyalty without something that you think that it's not a loyalty.
Oh, okay. That's got me there. Let me think a minute.
Sure. Please take your time.
Loyalty without dignity is something that we need to.
Perfect. That's the perfect answer.
Oh, good. I passed.
Yeah. No, you are 100% right. Loyalty without dignity. That when there's no dignity, there's no relationship.
That's right. And so many, I'm going to throw this out too. So many, I would say even long-term marriages. Here's what I believe about long-term marriages. They're not necessarily successful if you've been married 40, 50 years or longer. And short-term marriages are not necessarily failures if they happen to end in divorce. They may have had a time of completion. And so I'm all about not shaming you if you've been through a divorce or several other marriages or whatever, but so many marriages can be what you call hostage situations, which is definitely toxicity. And it's time for you to honor yourself, even the sanctity of a marriage is,
So that got me another question for you. What make marriage successful?
I think, actually, I feel like I've had 2 successful marriages myself. 40 years of marriage to 2 separate husbands, not at the same time. But that first marriage of 30 years that did end in divorce was successful because I bore 4 children, 4 humans. I now have 5 grandchildren, and it reached a level of completion. And I never refer to my exes. They're not exes. They're humans. They are like former husbands. So I want to give them the dignity of who they were in my life. And so that was successful. I wrote a book of my second marriage, so that was successful. Yeah. And honestly, to be married for 10 years to a remarkable human being who had a very severe illness, and for that long, that made it a successful marriage. Is a miracle. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I did not talk too much about your husband, about the bipolar situation, because I want people to read your book so they can find out the whole story. So Judy, I think, and also we talk about failure. I actually say that in life there is no such thing called failure. You basically learn something, or you will become something. Because your marriage is 2 marriages, it was not failure. You basically had experiences that you learn, and that way you cannot repeat those bad experiences into your new relationship kind of thing. Judy Herman, thank you so much for coming on our podcast, and we appreciate you, appreciate your time. And people, you listen to her, and also please read her book, Beyond Messy Relationship, and also Relationship with Purpose. You will find all those books on Amazon, correct?
Well, and the Beyond Messy Relationships is available in all formats.
Yes.
So you can get it Audible, Kindle, and you can buy it wherever books are sold. The second book, Relationships with Purpose, is on Amazon in both print and also Kindle form.
And actually, this book, Beyond Messy Relationship, you can also find on Audible as well as listening to book, because I'm listen to books.
I do that all the time.
Yeah. Again, thank you so much. And thank you, folks, for listening. If you like this episode, please like, subscribe, and share. And please comment what basically stood out to you in this conversation. And we'll see you in the next video. Until then, keep seeking.